This is going to be a response video to hedon 5028. He has left a comment in my previous video, and I'm going to respond to it. But first I'm going to read his response. So I'm going to quote hedon 5028. The glaring error in your thinking, at least glaring to me, is the application of human laws and its cultural practices to the iron law of the will. Comparing the suffragette movement, the gay marriage freedom, or the Emancipation Proclamation of black people to the instinctual hardware of self-preservation is utterly ridiculous in my opinion. Procreation isn't something you can protest away under the pretext of life is pain and suffering, nor is it something you could convince people to support. Antinatalist group only deals with the superficial aspect of their own concept, but it's not that simple. Your inability to dive deeper into the very thing that drives the human animal spells the failure of the movement at its conception. How do you protest away people's inherent sexual urges and all the inexplicable passions that accompanies them? The will is the lord of the world, the preservation of the species is its sole business, and any uprising against it is bound for failure. As a matter of fact, antinatalism is only serving the will, if anything. You made acceptance or resignation sound like something bad, but it isn't. Only the individual can save himself. The intellectual being who sees existence for what it is and endeavors to save himself by not procreating, thereby denying the will, is very rare and will forever be rare. The giant lung of this earth will continue to expand and retract. Its giant heart will continue to pump its crimson blood. It will continue to produce fresh humans for its consumption and dispose of them at will. It will extinct humanity only when it is ready, not a moment before or a moment after, and there is nothing you or I can do about it. It's the ego that made its occupant thinks he has so much control to deviate the course of the species. It will never happen. All right, that was quite a comment. So now finally my response. Actually, I agree with most of your points. In fact, everything you have said basically boils down to what my point was in my previous video. And the point that I was trying to make is that whatever we do, whatever action we undertake in life to support what we think is the best thing to do in life is basically pointless, more or less, because, as you say, the intellectual being who sees existence for what it is and endeavor to save himself by not procreating, thereby denying the will, is very rare and will forever be rare. Now, this is not only applied to procreation, but to almost everything. Okay? That's important. And this is where I did start making comparisons with, as you describe it, cultural practices. Because in the past, for example, women being oppressed was a lot more common. And so we can rephrase your statement in the following way. The intellectual being who sees inequality for what it is and the endeavor to save women from oppression by undertaking action to convince an entire nation is very rare and will maybe forever be rare. Now, luckily, it is not as rare as it was in the past, but oppression of women is still very common in certain countries. And unfortunately, oppression of women will most likely exist forever somewhere on earth. Now, this also boils down to your following statement. The giant lung of this earth will continue to expand and retract. Its giant heart will continue to pump its crimson blood. It will continue to produce fresh humans for its consumption and dispose of them at will. It will extinct humanity only when it is ready, not a moment before or a moment after, and there is nothing you or I can do about it. Okay, so now let's rephrase your statement as follows. Let's rephrase this statement as follows. The giant lung of this earth will continue to produce fresh humans, including humans, who will continue to oppress women no matter how many times people protest against it. These people who oppress women will only go extinct only when the earth is ready, not a moment before or a moment after, and there is nothing you or I can do about it. Okay, so what I'm basically trying to say is that your statement can be applied to literally every possible ideology or conceptual idea or opinion, including your opinion and my opinion. So the giant lung of this earth will continue to produce fresh humans, including humans who will continue to support antinatalism, including humans who will continue to critique antinatalism, including humans who will continue to make statements like yourself and myself, and there is nothing we can do about it. And this was one of the points that I was trying to make in my previous video. So let me quote myself. But the distinction between people who take action and people who don't give a damn about it will always exist. And the amount of people who do take action will never be enough to save all life from cruelty. There will always be victims. End quote. So now let's apply this statement of mine to everything else. Quote, the distinction between people who take action to support antinatalism and people who critique and disagree with antinatalism will always exist. And the amount of people who take action will never be enough to prevent everybody from giving birth, or the amount of people who critique antinatalism will never be enough to make an end to the philosophy of antinatalism or to the community of antinatalism. And in the same way, we can apply this statement to other examples. The distinction between people who take action to support deforestation and people who don't, right? They will always exist. And the amount of people who take action will most likely never be enough to compensate the amount of deforestation that has already took place. And in the same way, another example, the distinction between people agreeing and disagreeing with what I have just said will always exist. And there is nothing we can do about it. Right, so to finish off, in the previous video I was just sharing my opinion about cruelty and suffering and how I would rather not want it to exist. But of course I realize it will continue to exist until nature decides for us to go extinct. So there's nothing I can do about that. But in the same way, people like myself will continue to make statements about suffering like myself, and there is nothing you can do about it.